So we just finished Passion Week, Holy Week, Easter Sunday, Resurrection Sunday, whatever you prefer. So I thought it might be valuable to look at that for a little. We think of it as a pretty good thing now, in hindsight. It's basically the crux of the entire Christian faith, right? I would say even more than Christmas. But at the time, in the context of that part of the world, in that political climate, with those events transpiring, probably not the greatest week. Like, if you were to take a poll of the followers of Christ on Good Friday, they probably wouldn't say it was so good. Not a high point for the ministry. So, I wanted to look at some biblical instances in which things that were part of the plan probably didn't feel like part of the plan at the time. So, I picked 8 events or aspects of the life of Christ, one for every day of Holy Week. Probably should have put this episode out last week ahead of Holy Week, but it is what it is. So, 8 things that didn't seem like part of the plan, that were part of the plan, or at the very least worked out to be part of the plan. Number one, Jesus being born to unmarried parents among animals in a stable. Right off the bat, this really does not scream royalty, does it? Of course, we can look back with our historical goggles, our New Testament goggles, and reference Isaiah 7:14. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. And it sounds beautiful and poetic to us now, but at the time it was pretty confusing and scandalous. Imagine being Mary and being pregnant and knowing what's going on, knowing the truth. Like, do you try to explain it to people? Do you keep it to yourself? Do you defend yourself? Do you defend Joseph? The whole situation is very awkward and uncomfortable, but it's only as unpleasant as you allow it to be. When you have a word from the Lord, you hold on to it, right? And that is what defines your motives, and that is what defines your actions, and that is the lens through which you view your circumstances, even if it appears undesirable to other people. So there was no room for him, no red carpet, no grand procession. He was birthed among beasts and laid in a feeding trough. So humility was always part of the plan. Not only did he come to do life with us, he came to do life as us. He came to get the full human experience, and his beginnings were no exception. From Jump Street, we can identify with him, and he can identify with us, even if you're poor, even if your situation is less than ideal. So, number one, being born to unwed parents in kind of an icky place, part of the plan. Number two, having to flee to Egypt as a child. You don't really seem powerful and influential when a king is trying to kill you and you're forced to flee. And not only flee, but flee to a land that reeks in your particular tradition of slavery. But it's also kind of cool if you think about it that Christ came out of Egypt like Moses to ultimately lead his people out of slavery. But unlike Moses, it wasn't so much a physical slavery. And unlike Moses, it was for the cosmos, not just for the Hebrew people. So, number two, escaping death by fleeing to Egypt. Not a fun experience, but it worked out. He survived long enough to grow up and do all the stuff he needed to do. Number three, being left behind in Jerusalem as a child. This one particularly gives me dad anxiety. I always want to know where my kid is and who she's with and have the phone number of her friends' parents and everything. And of course, modern technology makes all this possible. Not really possible back then. I think families were a lot more dependent on extended family, uncles and cousins and things like that. I don't think families were spread out like they tend to be now. But Mary and Joseph really seem to fumble the ball here. I mean, if you believe this child is the Son of God, you probably keep up with him. You probably protect him. You probably try to keep him where you can see him. There's a lot riding on this kid, and you just lost him. You lost the Son of God. But it gives us this really cool moment where Jesus is in the temple listening and teaching and asking questions, which I think is really cool Because not only did he have the answers, he was the answer. And yet, he participated in the discourse. Luke 2 says specifically that he listened and asked questions. So if he listened and asked questions and didn't feel the need to overpower others and monopolize the conversation, maybe we should do the same. I think it's a great example. And of course, we see him tell his mother, like, where else would I be but in my father's house? I think that goes to show just because you're done with something, just because you're ready to move on and get back to reality and back to the grind and back to your routine, it doesn't mean Jesus is. And maybe the Christ in you is longing to linger in the temple. Maybe the Christ in you is wanting to say no to some things so that you can spend time with the Father, to recognize the significance of the Father's house. And what is the Father's house? What is the temple? It's us. It's you. You are the temple. He longed to linger. So maybe we could long to linger a little more or a little more often. So, number 3, getting left behind in Jerusalem. Number 4, being tempted in the wilderness. I always thought this was a weird little detour. Like, if you're Jesus, like you're the Messiah, your ministry is only going to last 3.5 years, but you're going to spend 40 days, almost a month and a half, in the wilderness, like talking to the devil. It's a weird way to me to start. But if you look at the timeline, right after he spends this time in the wilderness, that's when he starts preaching and healing people and getting all the W's that he's known for. So it seemed like this was part of his process, part of his preparation. And also, without this, we may not have Hebrews 4:15, which states, "He understands humanity, for as a man, our magnificent king priest was tempted in every way just as we are, and conquered sin." Which is, I think, an absolute banger as far as Bible verses go. And all of this shows us that he wasn't insulated from all of our human stuff. He experienced it, which is so important to remember when you're going through it, that he's right there with you. And not only is he right there with you, but he understands and sympathizes. So, number 4, being tempted by the devil in the wilderness, all while being hungry, by the way. It's hard to do anything when you're hungry. I can't even concentrate when I'm hungry. But anyway, number 5, being rejected in his hometown. Not a good look. Not a good look for someone who is going to commission his followers to go and make disciples of all nations. Like, if I'm whoever, Simon the Zealot, I'm going to be like, your own people don't even like you. How are they going to listen to me in Syria or wherever? And not only was he rejected, they tried to throw the man off a cliff. But all this might beg the question, are the people who knew you when you were 5 the best judges of your current value and abilities? Maybe they are. Maybe they're not. Just something to think about. So, number 5, being rejected in his hometown. Again, not a good look, but it does nudge us past this idea of your geography determining your worth. Does that make sense? Number 6, being betrayed and arrested. It's really interesting that being arrested is often part of a really powerful salvation testimony, right? Like that's something we really, really want to avoid. It's hard to bounce back from being arrested. It's beyond bankruptcy and divorce and alcoholism. If you've been arrested, people can look up your mugshot. There's visual proof you're a sinner, visual proof you've messed up, right? So when we feel the need to be perfect, I think it's good to remember that our Savior, our Messiah, has a record. He has a rap sheet. He has a mugshot. And again, all part of the plan. They weren't going to crucify a man that everyone across the board agreed was innocent. There had to be something brought against him. He had to be accused. Without the accusation, without the arrest, without the outrage, Without standing before Pilate, there is no crucifixion. If there's no crucifixion, there's no resurrection, etc., etc. So, number 6, being arrested. Absolutely part of the plan. Number 7, being denied by Peter. This, again, not a good look. I mean, Jesus himself called Peter the rock. This is the guy who is positioned, or at least will be positioned, as one of the most crucial figures in the early church. And the man denies that he even knows Jesus and has a chance to fix it and does it again, and has one more chance to fix it and does it again. I don't think we think about the magnitude of that. Like, not a good start for the Great Commission and the book of Acts and all that. But Jesus knew it was going to happen. He called it to Peter's face. Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. And this just really helps to cement this recurring theme in Scripture of Yahweh using imperfect people in imperfect situations. People who just can't seem to get it right. People who can't really seem to consistently, at least in their own strength, maintain moral standards or make good decisions. You've heard the list before, right? David was an adulterer, Moses was a murderer, etc., etc. And you would think that such a pivotal figure in the early church would be a little more, I don't know, untainted, unblemished. But God does not see this stuff like we do. He's not so quick to judge and to disqualify. Remember, all of it is a father and kids dynamic. It's familial, not legal. So think of your kids. Are you ready at any moment to throw them away? Or are you ready at any moment to help them do better by helping them see who they really are? And we get to see this happen on the shoreline after the resurrection, this beautiful moment between Yeshua and Peter. Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me? Feed my lambs. Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me? Tend my sheep. Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me? Feed my sheep. He makes him say, I love you 3 times, as many times as he denied that he knew him. So without Peter denying Christ, this moment isn't as impactful. For Peter himself, I think, and also for us being able to partake of it by reading the story all this time later. So, number 7, being denied by Peter. Heartbreaking, embarrassing, beautiful, powerful part of the plan. Number 8, being crucified. This one kind of goes without saying. Even if you are a king, you can't rule if you're dead. Like, if the king dies, he's no longer king. We've got to find a new king. Does he have a son? Is there an heir to the throne? Let's have a transfer of power before our enemies hear of it and decide to invade, right? You do not want an empty throne. An empty throne is a sign of disorder and weakness and instability. But not only did he die, he was tortured and executed. Some have said that by the end of it, he would have been unrecognizable as a human. So he came into the world seemingly no leverage and breathed his last, also seemingly with no leverage. But again, all part of the plan. So what's the point? Why are we talking about this? We know all this stuff, and it's probably been filling up our algorithms all week. The point is that life for you, for me, is littered with L's and W's, mountains and valleys, good days and not so good days. And we as humans make plans, right? We strive for things and work for things and hope for things. But often when we make plans, we conveniently leave out all the hardships that build the character that we need to handle the weight of the outcomes of the plans. We're typically like water. We want the path most traveled, the path of least resistance. And the thing we want and the thing that is actually best for us long term might not be the same thing. So, my question to you is this: what is a situation in your life that you can look back on that was unpleasant at the time, but you realize now was woven beautifully into your story, into the narrative of your life? I want you to think about that for a second. Write it down if you need to. And I just know that personally, lately, I've been saying things like, Lord, this doesn't feel like part of the plan. But when I've said things like that, the response that I've been hearing or kind of sensing is part of your plan or part of my plan? Because those could be two very different things. And we know the verses, right? The heart of man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps. Proverbs 16:9. His ways are higher than our ways, his thoughts are higher than our thoughts. Isaiah 55:9. We quote it, we teach it to our kids, but it's a whole nother animal to have to live in the middle of it. Some of these verses sound great when you quote them, but living them out can seem like absolute hell. And let's not forget that people are watching. People are listening, they're observing, and your L that you survive long enough to turn into a W could be the biggest deal in the world, not only for you, but also for them, because it proves what's possible. Christ in you, the hope of glory, as Paul puts it. What if Christ in you could be someone else's hope of glory? But I've realized that Yahweh is like this weird chess master. But instead of being a step ahead of you to crush you and embarrass you, he's a step ahead of you to make sure you win. But we have to stop for a moment and define what winning is. Is winning getting exactly what we want when we want? Is it maximum comfort, maximum convenience, maximum stroke to our ego? Or is winning just maximum impact? Are we willing to say, Lord, I yield to you? Do what you need to do to draw out what needs to be drawn out, both good and bad, to display to others that which is of you and your nature, and to cast away all that is not. I think it's worth a shot. Even Christ himself said, Not my will, but yours be done. And I would say he was pretty effective. I would say he's had a pretty big impact. So I hope you had a great Holy Week, Passion Week, egg hunt, potluck, whatever you do. It's a lot to process, I've realized. I forgot how much happens between Palm Sunday and the resurrection. And I think it's really easy, especially if you've heard these stories all your life, to think of the stories kind of in a vacuum and not piece them together in a narrative timeline. And that's something I've been really interested in the past year or so, like knowing how the puzzle fits together. Like water into wine goes here, Sermon on the Mount goes here. I think we kind of let ourselves off the hook from knowing basic things about our history. And I'm just at a point where that's not really good enough for me because it does matter. What directly precedes what is important. It's important in the story of Christ and it's important in your life. And just a reminder that studying out these events and reflecting on them is something you can do year round. No need to wait till spring to meditate on the obedience and sacrifice of Christ, his royalty, and his victory, which has become our royalty and our victory. I'm Ryan Coleman, the real Ryan Coleman on Instagram and Threads. I'll remind you again of my latest ebook. It's called Yes, You Are Creative. If you have a creative project rolling around in your head, if you have ideas collecting dust in the Google Docs, I want you to read this ebook. If you don't think you're creative at all, I want to prove you wrong. I dare you, yes, you, I dare you to read this book and still try to claim you're not creative. I dare you to read the book and not be excited to finish the project you've been working on or start the project you've been thinking about. I don't just dare you, I triple dog dare you. So I'll drop that link in the show notes so that we can work together to bring the dreams in your heart to life so that others can experience them. And frankly, so that you can experience them. And if this show impacts you, if it encourages you, if it makes you feel seen, I ask that you leave a review, or better yet, share this episode or any episode on social media. It doesn't cost you anything but a little bit of time. And Lord knows we're wasting more time than ever. But that's another podcast for another day. But as always, thank you so much for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.